This is a plastic heater box, which comes from a classic Range Rover, pretty much from 1989-ish onwards, right the way through to the end of hard dash production. It's not the same as the heater unit that you get in the soft dash, but yeah, this particular box has come from a customer's car and wanted me to refurbish it. Now, let me show you a few of the bits that I've been through here. So I'm going to balance you here. Clunk, 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 clunk. First and foremost, the actual motor itself, these things are prone to squeaking quite a lot. There's a felt pad there. And there's another felt pad on the other end of the motor, which you can see. And you can get it to rotate, but this one's not great. This one is, if I hold the wires away from the blower, that's not nice. And the reason it's not nice is if you look at the bearing on the top end there, that's fucked. It's never going to run. Okay, so that's dead. So then you start to look around and think, oh, good Lord, I need another motor. Well, these are the ones that I buy. So this is a Britpart RTC 6693. And it comes like this, but with some extra bits on it. And I thought, oh, I started pulling it apart and then realised, oh shit, perhaps I should have kept it together. So it comes with these two bits on here. It comes with this loom attached and that resistor in there. And really all you need to do is get hold of a pair of pliers here and pull this up. It's only very, very lightly spot welded on. And then twist it off these two centre ones. These two are tougher for some reason, but these two on the end here, just twisted them off. What I end up with then is a motor, you can see how nicely that spins, that looks almost exactly the same as this one. Great, okay, so that's motor sorted out. And then what I've done then is I've disconnected the two spade connectors off the inside of the motor. I'll chop these two and I'll splice them into those two. So I don't need this loom, I'll use that loom. There is a kit that has everything on it, but it's a shitload more money and I really can't see the benefit of it. Anyway, it's up to you. You spend your money how you want to. Next, we will look at the actual heater unit itself. So I've been through this thing and I've given it a monster clear up. And then what I've had to do is I've had to go through and put new felts on. Now, it's not common for the felt on these things to wear itself out. Now, this stuff here, clank, 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 clank. This stuff here is the original felt. This is just the felt that I put in the later boxes. So what I've had to do is just make up strips of it and put it around each of the flaps. All I would really recommend you do is take photographs of the various linkages and so forth before you take it apart. Okay? But this has all gone back together exactly how it needed to. So, having done that, having then taken the switch unit apart, so this one is the control for the heat, then we've got the controls for the fresh air, for the inside, outside, and then for the speed and also for the aircon and recirculating. Okay? Completely different and more electronic than the metal heater box. One problem that is really quite common, this is a slider switch which controls the aircon temperature. And what basically happens is that sits in there like that. That rod sits on there like that, and the idea when this moves backwards and forwards, this slider goes back and forth, and these sliders get very tight and they swell up. So what then happens is that breaks off. So what I'm inclined to do is actually just set this to cold, okay? Because when you have the aircon on, you want it cold. So set this to cold, so if the aircon ever gets recommissioned, it's just going to run cold. That's the easiest way of doing it. And then start putting this thing back together again. And I'll show you how I sort the loom out, how I get the motor in, how I assemble the box. Because one of the biggest problems with the plastic box is people get very confused as to how they come apart, and it's because of the fresh air vent at the top here. So if you look at the fresh air vent, it goes into this groove here, and even now when it's apart, it's a bastard to remove. And basically what you need to do is to pull this section down in order to give it the space for this to come out. Because when you line everything up, you can see it actually interferes at the top up here. So it's not uncommon. You can see I might have to do some felt work on here as well, but just glue that back on. And all I've used here, I've just used a Bostik glue. It seemed to work. I'm happy enough with it. Right. So, having done all of that, I'm going to put this thing back together again. So, first and foremost, we'll pop the flap back in by pulling that up. I'll glue this back into place once it's all back in. So I've got access on this side as well to go in with the glue. Metal plate goes on the far end. This end has all of the mechanism for the fresh air vent and everything else like that, so the plunger that goes on. Thus, if you take a few photographs when you take it apart, then it's going to make your life just a little bit easier. The other problem the customer had, and this is a really common problem unfortunately, when you're taking the plastic heater box out of the car, you've got to loosen the top section of the dashboard. I normally just undo the passenger side, so when you pull out the plastic tray on the passenger side just behind the fuck handle, you'll see there's 4 screws in there. You undo those 4 screws and then the whole top of the dashboard will lift up. That gives you the access to get this out. If you don't lift it up, what always happens is you snap off the bottom pipe, and that's rendered that scrap. There's nothing I can do with that because it snaps off right on the edge there. It's not like I can even wedge another pipe in there and seal it up. Nope. So I found a used old stock matrix. You can see there the differences. Given this a damn good flush out, and I'm happy with it, I need to put the foam around the edges of it and then install that into the box. But briefly to the aircon switch. Let me do that because I'll finish that piece now, then it can be done. Feed the loom back in. Just goes in through a hole, pull it all the way through, because that plugs into the aircon unit. Push that chappy back into its housing in here, just so it's all in the same place. And I don't have to look for it later on. And it just clicks in, like that. And then all I want to do, on this, that's cold, that's hot. So I want to push the plunger across as far to the left as I can. Okay? And that'll then have aircon always as icy cold can get. There's not many folk would have aircon set to warm, not in this country, not in the UK. Now, it's possible that you could find some way of bonding that back on again, but it's a weak spot. It's possible there may be a different style of switch you can put in. Entirely up to you how you research that. When I look at the plunger, that's a sort of diameter, and we're talking 15 mil across. Sorry, 1.5 mil across, 15 mil. Talk some shit sometimes, Richard. That's what happens when I start dealing in modern measurements rather than proper measurements. Right. Now, I need to reconnect the cable here. So all I'm really doing here is probably a pair of pliers. The reason I'm doing this, by the way, is because that was still underneath there. So I've taken that module off. And then put that over the top. Watch me snap my fingers shut in this thing now. There we are, it's gone on. So now the wire has gone onto the post. When I pull this, it's now adjusting the wire for the heat control. So I've got aircon set to freezing cold. All the switches are in place. Happy enough with that. Let's go on to motor. What I need to do with motor, I think, is get some insulation around the outside of it first and foremost, purely because I think it needs to be shielded. Now, if we work from the heater motor end, which is this end, we get rid of this end off the bench. So when you're looking at the front of the heater unit, the control goes on here. In fact, we can pop the control in now, just to show you how it all would fit together. That goes in there, like there's 2 tabs on the top here and there, and that needs to go into that slot there, and that goes up there. Right, so that's how the controls sit on the front of the unit. You can see we're working with half the clamshell. As far as the motor is concerned, it has to be installed. So you do have to split the body in order to get the motor in, and the motor needs to go in from the middle towards the outside. So just bear that in mind. Before I do that, let's do the electrics on it. So what I really need to do here, old motor, loom, needs to be cut and then spliced onto either new terminals, or I may, if I haven't got any of these right angle terminals, I may see if I can get normal terminals to fit onto these spades down here, okay, without it interfering with the fan operation, or I'll splice these two wires in. There's no terminals on the original style, they were soldered on. I tried to push this out to see if I could get to the soldered terminals, not a chance. But as this thing is crap, we're just gonna snippy McSnipface. Fucked. Now, this will then plug straight back in to the customer's car, into the loom. Alright, which is why I do it this way round. This bit, as nice as it is, it's no use to me. So what I really need to do now is to put two terminals on here and foam up that matrix. Glued felts on the edge there. When I came to the motor, I'll move the soldering kit out of the way because I didn't end up soldering anything at all. What I ended up doing was cutting the loom that was originally on the new motor. There was a splice here because it spliced off and went into the resistor before it got to the motor, and left myself with two wires here. So then all I need to do, having got the matrix into place, is to feed the motor in such that the wires go through the little channel there. I'm rather hoping, anyway. And it might work and it might not. I don't know yet. We're going to find out in a second. You are here for the live click. It might need to go into those ones. It might need to go into the two at the top. There's a small... It's because there's a piece on the outside of the casing here that is quite tight. Right, just pushing it in now. It's quite a nice, tight, snug fit. It's almost there, and the wires have come right the way through. I think we're there. So basically, it's up against the back of the housing here. It's central, it's solid. That'll work. Right, with that in mind, I can do the electrics once I've got the unit assembled. And all I then need to do is splice that onto these. One black, one red. And I've got a feeling the black is going to be earth and the red is going to be alive. And similarly with the black and the yellow. But once it's all together, I can fire everything up and we can see if it works. Now, getting the two halves together can be a kerfuffle. So first and foremost, you do need the control panel in place, and you need all the flaps in place as well. Now luckily, on these, the flaps tend to get held in place. They're held in place by various clips and bits on the outside. So when you're lobbing it back in together, into one place, into one piece, whatever, what have you. Let's get this thing the right way around, Richard. That's the bottom, silly arse. That's popped out of there. Why is that popped out of there? Right, pop back in now, because I'm moving things around. When you are sliding it all back together again, it's just really a case of getting it so it's roughly in the right sort of place. That goes on that side there. So that wants to go in there, that wants to go there. They are a faff. It's probably a lot easier for me to do this without trying to film it. But where would the fun in that be? What I might need to do here is just trim a piece of the foam off the tail end here, because it's just a bit on the tight side. It's just a bit tight going in, you see, for now. Fuck's sake. That over there. Now I could potentially take the 3 flaps out of this and put them in the other, but I think that might not be as easy then as doing it the way I've always done it, which is like this. How you put them together is entirely up to you. Right. Now. Oh, that was come out anyway. Right, okay, let's take this flap, pop him back in here. I think he needs to go in there. Reassemble this clip here so that it lines up on there. Oh my goodness. Right, so now when I pull this, see it's moving that flap. And then the last little bit is this little dog leg down here. When you pull it that way, then it lifts this flap down here. Now, what's actually happening here is I can see this flap actually hasn't gone right the way through this plunger, which is probably why it fell off. It has now. Right, let's try that again. As if to prove it wasn't a complete fucking fluke. So that one goes there, that one goes there. That needs to go in there. That wants to go there. That wants to go in that gap there. I don't know what that noise was. Oh, that. Has that gone the wrong side? That can come back out, go the right side. That's good. That goes in there. That's just the flap there that goes onto the control. Pull this bit on the back down and push together. And we're pretty darn close, I think. That one wants to go down a bit. That's in. There we are. Like that. Just like that. Right, there's one flap here. It's this one. Naughty little man. It's going to go in, I think. It's in. And then that goes together. That goes together. This goes together. And right, another one not quite connected, this one here. So if I go the right way up, that's actually not gone into its flap at all. So if we take this blank panel out, which is there, and then that needs to go into there, which it will do. Now oh, come on, you bastard. Right, what we might have to do with this bottom flap is undo the clip here, the adjusting clip. All these clips are pretty much the same. You just flick one side of it open with a completely unsuitable tool. Shout at it, find a completely suitable tool. Oh, I was going to do the wrong fucking side, Richard. That lifts off like that. That comes out of there, and I've got the flap, access to the flap now, which I can wiggle around and get it located. Don't know why that's... Has that gone the wrong side of something? Because I'm gashing my bloody fingers up, trying to get it such that it is... Oh, there, I've got the other side of it now. It's because there's like quite a big recess in here. So lift it out, push it back, and there it goes. That's all together. That is it. So now it's just a case of putting all the clips and the screws together. Barely lost any skin on that as well. That's pretty impressive. So we've got a reasonably snug fit all the way around. That there just needs to go into the little recess there. Once it's all screwed, that's it. It fits together quite nicely. It just clicks in. And then you've got all of these metal clips all the way around, left, right and bloody centre, that all needs to fit in. So that one's in, 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 that one's in. It's working. This one at the front here. So I just use the rods just to make sure that they are free. So I've not connected anything up yet. That one works. And there's one that comes down from the top here, which I can see is free already. Although it has actually flipped right over. Is that what's causing me some difficulty here? It's because that lever there is in the wrong bloody place, that's why. Right, there we go. That one's working. Well, that's actually all right. So let me start putting some clips on. Next. One issue I've got with this heater box was provided to me in a state of disassembly. And there was a box with all the fixings and so forth in it, but none of the, well, it didn't have the full complement of clips. Now these little clips on the top here, they're like that. They're like an elongated U, G, C, whatever you want to call it. I've not been able to find these anywhere. You would have thought these would come from a supplier somewhere in the universe, and you know, you'd be able to use them. However, I've not been able to find them. So the customer says, oh, I've got them, but he can't find out where they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to pop this thing back together the best I can to hold it roughly into place. So I can put a C-clip around there. I probably need a clip on the front here, don't I? Got one clip on the back, I think. Yeah, there's one clip down there. If I put that clip on the base, I've got two screws on the back, and then I think it's going to hold itself together enough that it can go back to the customer, and he can fit the rest of the clips himself. Anyway, the other thing that was missing, fucking hell, really, was the clip that goes in the hole here. Now, we go to my spares unit. You can see there's a little grommet in there, and the cable goes through that and into it. So yeah, I'm going to need to sort that out as well. And then I really want to make sure that everything is lined up and everything is going to be working on this. Now, this is obviously just that's broken off somewhere. This is why it's a spares unit and not a live unit. I do have the metal clip. I don't have this. These are the bits that were provided in the box. It's about half a dozen screws, two clips. Anyway, it happens. As far as the testing is concerned, I can't do much more than test the motor works by putting voltage through these two. I will reutilise the rest of the mechanism and also the original loom, which is kicking around somewhere. There's the original loom. Okay, so once I know this works, I shall wire up black and red. And really all I'm going to do with the motor is make sure that it turns and is nice, and also that it blows through here rather than sucking. Right, it comes to these two control levers. They're dead easy to put together, really. You line up the rod into the clip. We want to have that open or closed. I think that's right. And then we clip it closed, and then we open it. That's open. Sorry, that's closed, and that's open. That's how easy these things are. Not like the metal ones, which can be a kerfuffle. And then this one, much the same. So let's have it right the way down, and the flap I know is right the way down. Push that in, push that on. There we are. And then I can see the flap down here, and through the side here. Can you see? You can. Looking through the side here, I can see that the flap is doing more or less exactly what it wants to do. It's a bit of a heavy feel to it. I might just undo this screw here and just double check. It might just be the lever. Yeah, that's a lot easier. So obviously just need some lube behind that screw. I'll probably just use something silicone-y, maybe a smear of Vaseline. In fact, yeah, that's just a little bit on the tight side. Right, then what we need to do then is we need to adjust the temperature control. Right, so it looks like that. It goes in from behind, like that. That will go into it. It will go into it. We might just need a little squeeze with a pair of pliers. Nope. Maybe it's rotating. Because obviously the cable only goes in one direction. Push the cable back in. Just to explain, there is a hole through the middle of it, and the end of the cable's got a right angle on it, so that needs to go back into there. It is going to go in, I know it. Ham-fisted Gibbon. Right, okay, and then come on, you bastard. There we are. Click. Did you hear it? I did. Right, that's gone in there. And then what we need to do is we need to adjust it such that we've got the temperature. In fact, I've got some telltales here on the original sheath, which I am going to utilise. And that goes in there. And that goes on there. And then the screw goes in here. It's going to want to. There we are. And then once that's done up, it's going to hold the outer sheath of the cable. And then when I'm adjusting from hot to cold, we've got the heat. And then finally we want to cut off, when we go into the cold side of it, we want to cut off the matrix. So there's a funny little dimple down here. I just want to make sure that that does go all the way, and it does. That flap is now fully closed. So there we go, there's another one working. That's all in, that's all in. That flap there doesn't look like it's gone right on that gear. It has now. Just pushing the other end of the flap and then pushing down on that. So that's that one. Now, what we've also got on here is we've got the fresh air vent. And the fresh air vent is operated by, on this, by a solenoid and a vacuum, which comes off the black ball that sits in your engine bay. Now, interestingly, this one's actually got an extra bit of metal attached to it. Wonder why. Looks factory, doesn't it? It's almost like the solenoid, sorry, the vacuum activator has come from somewhere else and whatever. Anyway, it is what it is. It's going back on. And then we've got the main cable that goes into the circuit. Can't test the switches on the front because I haven't got the loom. Customer's got that. Never mind, we can test the main power of this thing. So, how are we going to do that? I think all we do is just, we nibble these back and we put a couple of jump leads on there and we give it some voltage, I think. Battery, we've got a couple of jump leads. Connect up the positive first, which can go there. Keep the negative nice and clear. There's no circuit yet, so I'm not particularly worried about sparks. And then all I want to do really is touch this onto the negative terminal and check that we're blowing. It's definitely blowing. It's a bit noisy though, isn't it? Just check it's not actually touching on the, we'll take the power off, move the battery. It's just kissing the inside of the casing here. That, because of course we've used a pattern. That's better. Blowing up front. So we know the yellow is positive, the black is negative. Right, okay, what I really want to do here is make sure that that thing is not going to do that again when it starts squeaking because it's just touching the case. So I'll investigate that. Just going through my big box of these style of clips. So I've got all manner in there. I've got C clips, I've got Sir clips, I've got whatever these are called, Sir clips, and I think this is going to be the right sort of size. Let's have a look. It fits. And there's another one in the back here. Goes there. These are a fairly generic size. I don't know what diameter this is, but if you've taken them off, then fine. They go into nice little slots there. Let's hold that together quite tight. So we should be okay there. La 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 la. Right. Next. We're down to 5 screws. Let's go back round here again. I can't test the temperature sensor, but as you've seen already, I've wedged that such that it is on its coldest setting. So I'll just connect that back up to live. Connect this back up to negative. And just check it's not squeaking. Tight, isn't it? It's I think they are designed to be. So we're looking in here, we can see the end of the blower, and it runs very, 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 very close to the inside of the housing there. Very close. I mean, obviously it wants to be able to blow air, doesn't it? Really. Right. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I might just have to I'll have to run it on an extended test, I think, and see if it moves at all. Will you get any movement on this motor? No, it's all quite tight in there. I mean, it was quite a tight fit when I wedged it in. What I'm thinking here on this, if I was to take these two lugs off at the top here and push the motor back in just a couple of millimetres further, it's going to clear then the housing. It's going to be a lot easier and quicker than taking it apart. The problem is we're dealing with pattern parts. I don't know where the motor came from. Visually it looked exactly the same as the old one, but clearly there is a very tight tolerance in between the actual blower and the casing. And the last thing I want is this thing to start squealing as soon as it goes back in again, because that will just be not cool. Right, that goes on there, that goes on there. So what I'm talking about here, because we've got a fraction of a millimetre here, what I'm saying is take off that tab and that tab, bring the motor back a tiny bit further. It's like it's a backstop, really, is what that thing is there for. And that might then make life a bit easier for us, possibly. Let's use a Stanley knife just to cut through those two, and that's actually gone a long way in. Now what I'm going to need to do is find some way of holding that in place, because you can see now I've got a little bit of back and forth movement, but it's not going much further forwards than it originally did. So let's again put power to it. Because at this stage, you see, you can fix these tiny little issues. It becomes a bit of a ball's ache when it's all behind the dash again. That's going, yeah, that's going nowhere near. So I think that will have resolved that. What I'm inclined to do, though, is perhaps push it out, put a drop of something sticky on there and push it back. It's actually pretty bloody tight, I'll be honest. I don't want to come too far back, because if I come too far back, then I'm going to end up with exactly the same situation on the blades on the reverse of the fan. But at the moment, I'd say that's fine. But then on this side, yeah, with bags of room. Right. So all I'm going to use for this is a couple of butt clamps. Butt crimps, Richard, not butt clamps. I don't know what you answered. Just wrong. It's just very, very, very wrong. I get all of these electrical products from a company called Vehicle Wiring Products. It's not sponsored, there's no promotion, there's no nothing. It's just me, happy customer. Well, that goes on there, that goes on there. That's great. And then what I really want to do is just make sure that this is going to fit in. It goes that way up. I think these can be shortened somewhat. Otherwise I'm going to end up with too much wire in there. And oops. And oh, God help us. Oh. So we're going to go red to yellow. I will double check it in a second when I go through the oops, that's the wrong size then. Nicely done. And black to black, back to black. Right, now they've got heat shrinks on there as well, but so then this lot needs to fit in up here. There is actually, when you look at the back of the heater body, there's a slot at the top up here, and that's what this plate goes into. that goes up there, and the slot goes into there, which it is going to go in. Beautiful. And that's in, and then I've got to find some screws now. Right, the screws I've measured, so they just about go through a 4mm hole. So posi 8, the only posi 8s I've got are 3/4 of an inch long, and these ones are 1/4 of an inch long. Just a smidge under 1/4 of an inch long, or in new money, 8mm. So it's up to you whether you use 8mm or 1/4 of an inch. So I think what we're going to have to do here is just hold it in with a couple of bloody screws. There's not a lot I can really do about that. I can order some more number 8 by 1/4 of an inch screws, and it might get us out of a hole, but they've got quite a big flange. That one hasn't. Where's the other one gone? Here they are, over here. They've got quite a big flange on the end there. A very coarse thread too. Right, okay, so that can go down there, that can go there. And that one can go down there. So you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this end, and I've got 4. Now this needs to fix back on here again, and because it's got a very helpful D shape on the end of it, it can only go on one way round, like that. Okay, and it operates through its entire range. We can just double check that the vacuum is working. Yeah, it is. I can go back on there, that's all ready. Pretty much about there. I need to put the blank plate on the other end. That's what I'm going to save these other 2 screws for. There we go. Done. E-muck. Done face. 1 litre. Oh yeah.